Need to make sure that everybody who comes in is on mute, please.
Already done.
Because I can hear somebody's radio or TV.
Yeah, there's some background noise.
I don't know what to tell you. The only people unmuted are us.
Okay, so you have to mute. No, you're unmuted. I have the line through it.
Okay, now I hear somebody is not.
Sounds like talking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kim, here we go.
Okay, I just changed a setting. That should take care of it.
Okay.
Tim, you're not going to be able to unmute yourself, though.
I just admitted Kathleen Tate, Kelly McKenzie. I just admitted her.
Okay.
Okay.
I see the one that, I don't know.
There's a message from Emily.
Yeah, it was just Emily's suggestion was just on something to check for muting. So we've taken care of it.
Okay, are we ready to start the meeting then?
We are.
Yeah, welcome everybody. This is the May 13th, 2020 Town Board Business Meeting. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted along with the meeting minutes at the town website. I will make a couple of announcements. We've received all petitions and comments received to date have been posted on the moratorium, in the moratorium folder at the town website. And today we received 2 batches of petitions of people opposed to the moratorium, totaling 89 signatures. And we also received an updated petition of people supporting the moratorium, totaling 711 signatures. And I guess I want to open with an introduction again to the, we've kept the public hearing open on the moratorium, and I'm going to start the meeting by reopening that public hearing. And I want to start by, we've heard comments both, you know, in support of the moratorium and opposed to the moratorium. We've heard comments in favor of Dollar General and opposed to Dollar General. And so I just wanted to clarify with this statement about what the moratorium really is. So the town board has proposed this local law as a measure of due diligence, given that the town's comprehensive plan has been under rigorous review and revision after multiple public meetings and a town-wide survey over the past few years, and is projected to be completed by late summer or fall. This will enable the town board to evaluate existing development guidance tools of the town in light of the updated comprehensive plan, to determine whether we wish to consider modified or additional land use regulations. The draft moratorium is a pause, not a prohibition, on development subject to site plan and subdivision review, to ensure that we do our best to protect the vision and the future of Caroline. I'm going to propose that we reshuffle or reorganize the agenda for tonight's meeting such that the discussion of the moratorium will be the last item that we consider after the presentation from Terry Carroll and Lou Vogel on the stretch code. So without, I believe those are my preliminary comments. So, and I will, so I'll reopen the public hearing. And so if you do want to speak tonight, please raise your blue Zoom hand. Again, if you go to the bottom of your participants window, you should have an option for raising your blue Zoom hand.
None.
Nothing happening, huh? Okay.
I take it back.
Okay. Great.
All right. The first hand I saw was Kira's. So I'm going to unmute Kira.
Okay. Thanks, John.
Hello. Thank you all so much again for your commitment to this issue. I'm actually going to read a statement tonight that my neighbor, Victoria Campbell, sent over. She is the director of Wild Things Sanctuary. She lives at 10 Hickory Trail, and she also works at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. From Victoria. Caroline's natural beauty is a treasure that we must hold dear. We are truly fortunate to live in such a special place and need to respect it and care for it. I want to take a chance to speak on behalf of our wild neighbors and natural beauty. Even during this cold spring, I am reminded of the joys of living in Caroline as I watch our migratory birds return to nest here for the summer. I just saw the first ruby-throated hummingbird today and have had orioles and warblers arriving over the last week. Sapsuckers have returned and joined the other 5 species of woodpeckers that live around my house. Yet, despite this bounty of life, I've seen sad changes in the 15 years that I have lived here. In the last few years, the song of the wood thrush is almost absent. This is one of the fastest declining bird species in North America, who has held out in the Caroline woods longer than in other places. I no longer see gray fox or hear turkeys gobble in my woods. Ruffed grouse are rarely seen, and golden spotted salamanders are found less and less often. Large declines of bats mean that insect control is becoming a problem. In the last 5 to 10 years, fields that hosted wildflowers now host cows, and that has caused an increase in populations of parasitic cowbirds and non-native aggressive starlings and house sparrows that outcompete other songbirds who used to live in Caroline. We are all so fortunate to live in Caroline and have a precious and wonderful obligation to respect its beauty and all of its inhabitants. Developments such as dollar stores serve a purpose, but there is no need for one in a place that is already showing precarious signs of natural decline. We must cherish areas that host our wildlife neighbors and bring a natural balance to our own life and health. The field where development is planned is filled with all kinds of animals, many having offspring at this time of year. That is a free and wonderful gift that we in Caroline are so lucky to be part of. Let us honor that richness over development that promises nothing other than a decline to our full coffers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kira. Robin Rosoff?
Yep, is next.
Great.
Hi, my name is Robin Rosoff, and my husband is Rick Rosoff. We both want to thank the town board for providing these virtual meetings so that the Caroline residents can express their support for a 100-day moratorium before actions will be taken by the GBT Realtor project to build a dollar store. And thank you to the planning board for their hard, dedicated work on the comprehensive plan for our community. Rick and I strongly urge the town board to initiate this 100-day moratorium so that the planning board can further work on this plan that describes how our community wants to maintain the quaintness and beauty of our rural neighborhoods. Rick and I have lived at the bottom of Buffalo Road in Slaterville Springs since 1974 way before many of you were born. We chose to live here in this country because of the clean air, our backyard, the wonderful places to walk, and beautiful scenery. Whenever we drive into Ithaca on Route 79, we are in awe of the magnificent countryside and its ever-changing seasonal colors. Aside from our little country stores in Sladeville Springs and the Brookton Market in Brookendale, there's no other retailer development. We want to keep it that way. Having a Dollar General store sitting at the corners of Landon Road and Route 79 in the town of Caroline would affect property values for our neighbors and our community and be dangerous to drivers, besides ruining our stunning landscapes. Why would we need a dollar store in our area when there are a few already in Ithaca and Dryden? These stores have frequently been abandoned, and then the community is left with an empty building, which is a disgusting monstrosity. We want to preserve the beauty of where we all have chosen to live. A dollar store doesn't fit in with our vision of a safe and natural setting in the town of Caroline. We strongly support the 100-day moratorium and urge the board to do the same. And we thank you for your dedication and for all those who have spoken so eloquently on this subject.
Thank you, Robin.
Okay, Eric Frank is next.
Okay, hi. My wife and I own a house on Landon Road. We also own a house on Brookendale Road. My wife's been in Caroline her entire life, and we've been here together for 11 years. Aside from any personal views on the proposed construction, I just feel like, and we both feel, that welcoming a retailer into our town is a big decision. And, I think we need to take this 180 days. It's taken a few years now to write our comprehensive plan. Another 180 days isn't going to hurt. I think that the prospective developers should also respect this moratorium if they feel like they want to be welcomed into our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Rose Fritzky Randolph is next, Mark.
Thanks, John.
Okay, hello.
Hi.
Thank you, board members, for your diligence and efforts regarding this matter. As the sheer number of signatures, near over 700 now, and the multitude of thoughtful letters sent your way suggests, this is clearly something that means a great deal to the citizens of Caroline, whom you represent. I vehemently agree, along with so many other members of our community, that the board's decision to enact a moratorium at this time is absolutely imperative, not only so the planning board may complete the framework for our town going forward, but also because we're in the midst of a global pandemic, and if that doesn't qualify as an exigent circumstance, I don't know what would. I believe that any commercial development being pushed forward in a peaceful town like Caroline would get some initial pushback, but if it was made clear that the proposed development was in line with our values, prioritized the preservation of our community, did not damage the rural character of our town, I don't doubt for one moment that we'd come together in support. That said, the mere notion of a multi-billion-dollar corporation breaking ground here has undeniably brought this town to its feet. This is a community of people who care enough to fight the fights that are worth fighting, and I have never felt more proud to live here. As we've heard on this forum before, this is indeed a wake-up call. We have an opportunity to stand up for ourselves and do our part to preserve what makes Caroline a desirable town to live in the first place. This particular commercial development, so accustomed to being called out for the negative impact it has on the areas it infiltrates that it chooses to remain nameless, is notorious for contributing to the growth of food deserts and the decline of local businesses, for creating and maintaining economic distress and encouraging the spread of further commercial sprawl, all of which goes directly against the 2006 Town of Caroline Comprehensive Plan as it stands. A plan that envisions a town where green space is plentiful, a town that's environmentally aware and upholds high quality of water, air, and land, and peaceful night skies, a town in which the local economy flourishes with locally owned small businesses. Establishments like this, almost always owned and proposed by people who live far outside the towns they wish to exploit and extract wealth from, establishments that sell cheap products manufactured overseas by people in unsafe working conditions for unjust wages, do not deserve our support. When there are countless better, healthier, more effective, and more economically sound ways of providing for our low-income community members, why would we choose to provide them with yet another box store that literally depends on the continued desperation of its customers in order to thrive? Collectively, we have the resources and ingenuity to help our community in a myriad of ways, but this is not the right one. From the bottom of our hearts, we implore our town leadership to stand strong and approve the 180-day moratorium on commercial development. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Is there anyone else that would like to speak during the public hearing on the moratorium?
Rita Rosenberg would like to speak, Mark.
Rita?
Good evening, everyone. I'm so proud to be sitting side by side with a group of committed individuals who are part of a movement that will have long-lasting impact on our greater community. It has been 2 months since a petition requesting that the Caroline Town Board enact a moratorium on new commercial development was submitted to the town board with 37 town resident signatures. These were real-time signatures. The world changed and digital signatures became the new wave. Now with over 700 signatures from Caroline residents and beyond, dozens of letters sent to the town board, planning board, and review board members, many town residents attending and speaking at all 3 board meetings. And it is overwhelming to see so many in attendance this evening, watching and hoping that the town board is poised and ready to vote on the 180-day moratorium. I have heard many refer to the moratorium as a pause, but I refer to it as a call to action. Having attended the planning board meeting last evening, I continue to be impressed and confident in the progress that they have already made toward the comprehensive plan. They are listening carefully to the town residents' input as they thoughtfully craft a plan that includes timelines, concrete action steps, recognizing the plan for consistency, and more, with a view for 5, 10, 15 years out. And as we move forward together during the moratorium period, all area reps to share their insights with members from all 3 boards, and public forums will be scheduled so meaningful discussion can continue. Everyone needs to be included in this critical discussion, especially as the core of our economic system has been shaken by the pandemic. It is imperative that the entire community be fully engaged in sharing their vision for our town in this new economic world. I would be remiss if I did not thank GBT Realty and the Dollar General Corporation for submitting the sketch plan to build in our community. It was just what we needed to take immediate action to protect all we hold sacred in our town. I now encourage our town board representatives to honor the input from your constituents and unanimously support the 180-day moratorium to allow your community its voice in the comprehensive plan process. My heartfelt appreciation to all board members and the community for their commitment, energy, and for their vision. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rita. Do we have any other speakers for the public hearing?
That appears to be everyone.
Okay. I'm now going to close the public hearing on the moratorium, the draft moratorium that we've presented. And as I mentioned earlier, the town board will be discussing the moratorium later in the agenda. I will now ask if anybody would like to speak to the town board at privilege of the floor on any matter of importance. So this is our regular start to the meetings for opportunity of privilege of the floor. No hands, John? Is that right? Okay. All right. I'll move on and ask our highway superintendent, Bobby Spencer, if he has a report, if he wants to speak to.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Just a few things. Ditching should be about done on Buffalo Road. And we should be hydro seeding next week, hopefully. Been working on potholes on all the back roads. The winter's been pretty tough on them. The big thing is CHIPS money. It's still up in the air. We've had a few conversations with county representatives, and everybody's still waiting for the same letter. As soon as I know something, I'll let you know. Got some upcoming meetings with DEC and Soil and Water on Shindagan, and to see if we can do something about the problem down there with floodwaters and gravel. And that's about it for me.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Does anybody have any
Yeah,
questions?
I have a question for Bobby. Bobby, I'm just wondering, do you have a list in mind of projects to do if we get the CHIPS money in, or, various projects and various, rough guesses on costs so that, if and when we get money, you'll know what to jump in and start doing?
Yeah.
Bobby, are you there?
He might have stepped away. I'll just say I think we did the 289 agreement with him, but I'll let him speak.
Bobby, are you there? You're on mute if you are.
He's actually unmuted, Irene. Oh, he's back muted.
No, he's back muted.
Unmuted. Maybe it would make sense for me to do my report and then see if Bobby reappears. Can you hear us, Bob? The wonders of Zoom meetings. So I'll go ahead and we'll see if we can get Bob here in a minute. So I'll offer my report. Correspondence of note, Mike Kaplinkalair dropped by Census 2020 flyers, a folder at the town hall, and to promote the census. And so thinking maybe we should post something on the website to alert people that, everybody should have gotten a census in the mail by April 1st. And so you know, we want to encourage people to complete that. So I was thinking we should maybe just put a little blurb on the website, since we're not getting much traffic at the town hall these days.
Well, the website and the listserv is, I think we don't usually get a lot of traffic at our website either.
Okay.
But send something out on the listserv is better.
Or we could do both, right? You mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. We received a letter from the principal examiner at the Office of the State Comptroller acknowledging receipt of our corrective action plan in response to the audit that was completed last year. And the audit and our response is publicly available at Open Books New York. My report, I've been meeting with town supervisors. Now we're meeting every other week to confer about COVID-19 issues and help each update on all the issues and the changing landscape. So there is this week New York State, as most of you know, has announced a reopening plan, a phase 1, and so we'll be following that. At this point, I think for the town offices, we're going to be continuing to maintain maintain services by email and phone, which we've been able to do effectively with the clerk's office, my office, and the code office. So we'll keep abreast of that. So this is phase 1, and then if everything goes well, there'll be a phase 2 after that. I've been working with Bobby and Donald Harner at TG Miller on a final plan for permits, or final planning for permits, and putting out an RFP for the culvert and stream work on Ecruz Road. So that's nearly ready to go, and we are anxious to move that forward. Preparing a bid solicitation for the bioretention feature, and possibly including in that the sidewalk at the town hall. I had a meeting with the New York Power Authority on the LED street light program that we've engaged with them. And that was me and other municipal officials. Caroline, I have submitted materials. I'm awaiting confirmation that they have everything they need. Apparently our design plan hasn't reached the 90% completion stage. I think they're prioritizing projects based on when towns submitted and finished all getting the documents to NYSEG for purchase of the streetlight infrastructure. And we'll be holding that meeting every 2 weeks. So I should have regular updates on where we're at with that. I clarified with their engineer that the project is conceptualized as a one-to-one replacement. And so it's not really a reconfiguration of streetlight distribution within the town, but they will be doing engineering analysis to optimize the lighting at each location where we currently have streetlights. That said, if we have particular concerns, then we can let them know and have that discussion. So we have concerns about safety hazard, or where lighting is needed, or an area where we think there's too many lights, we can let them know. But what he said is, so if you thought in general, their program, if you thought you had too many lights, what they would do is moderate the lighting at each of those fixtures. So, but we can definitely engage with them on that. But it's and then I've been working with our bookkeeper, Velvet Light, and she's completing the 2019 AUD, which is our financial document for the year's accounting. And she's been working with Williamson Law Book on the municipal accounting and getting that in order. So that's my report. Questions? Irene?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So I have questions on both what I'll start with the bookkeeper stuff, and it just has to do with Williamson Law and BAS. And I know that at last year's budget, there was talk about, switching over to Williamson Law as opposed to BAS, and certainly there are price advantages to doing that, but it's also, not a very, people who use BAS find it much better than Williamson Law. Anyhow, at some point, I think the clerk and bookkeeper were going to evaluate those, and I just want to, see if they're doing that, and or if they've come to a decision to stick with what they've got, just so that we can look at that towards now when it's when there's not so much going on, that they could evaluate that. And it actually relates to kind of a bigger question that I have, which is that we've talked before about wanting to do a 5-year capital plan. And I know that that Velvet was willing to tackle that. I think there's guidance from the Comptroller's office. And so I wonder if that's at all on the radar to do that, and when might be a good time to get started. We've got significant potential expenditures coming up with talk of highway barn and new trucks and everything else, and I just kind of like to know where we are, and especially given the pandemic and the financial.
I completely agree.
Yep. So I didn't know, do we have any status on that?
I think that's the next step. So I would say for the that should be the immediate next thing on the agenda, and for like the next 2 months to evaluate where we're at and look at the expenditures that we've committed to, and get a really firm idea of where we're at. So.
Okay, so in other words, you guys are gonna look at those documents from the Comptroller's office and see what can be done, and certainly let us know if there's ways that we can help. I do also just wanna figure out, I'm not happy to hear that streetlights is a 1-for-1 replacement, and that they'll just adjust, the brightness basically, or, whatever. We have.
Well, Irene?
Yeah.
Can I just chime in quickly? You could tell from the way I reported that it was kind of so.
Yeah, so
it wasn't it was kind of a two-sided answer, as I sort of described. So they did say, if there are clear issues that we can bring those to their attention. And
right, and so I just want to follow up on that and say that, I still would like, if we can find out about, having a lighting expert who can evaluate the different, areas that are lit as to whether or not those lights are needed, as opposed to us just, for me, there's, I think we've got close to 80 lights, right? 78 lights or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot of lights. But
Yeah,
I, maybe we need them. And I don't want to drive around and go, well, what about, do we need this one? Do we need this one? Do we need this one? I just want to have somebody come through and say,
Mhm.
these are the ones that you absolutely need, and these are the ones that are, discretionary.
I think we should, I think we should press NIPA on this point, and engage with, so just to, we're
And if,
contracted with them, and I just,
yeah, and if they won't do it, then, let's find somebody who can. But, it seems like they're bringing us a lighting expert.
right, they have an
so-
engineer that I spoke with, so, I appreciate what you're saying. So I think the first step would be to bring it back to them and say, this is our concern. We want to feel like we have moved to a better place, if it's called for. So in terms of how our streetlights are designed. So
Looks like Tim wants in.
okay. Tim wants to speak.
Tim cannot speak. I was just going to say that when he came to speak with us last year, my recollection is that he did promise that kind of evaluation
Yeah.
as
Okay.
part of the package. So it certainly seems well worth pursuing again.
Good. Okay.
Now I can be unmuted permanently again.
Do all the board members have autonomy in muting and unmuting, or no? Oh, can't do it. That's too
I
bad.
think Tim does. Just try it now, Tim. No, really? That's weird because I unmuted you and then it muted and then you unmuted yourself. I don't get it.
It might have been, John, that you and I were both doing it, because I was trying to unmute Tim also. So the
Don't
co-hosts,
touch the mute.
the co-hosts have access to the mute button. So Cal, hi, I unmuted you too, in case you want to speak.
Oh, great.
Stay in your lane, Wiser.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Irene and Tim. Yep. These are good points.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
We had
Bobby,
some
yeah.
had some audio trouble. But,
Yeah, complete audio trouble.
Yeah. So Irene, you started asking a question. What was that? I only heard part of it.
Yeah, my question was back with the CHIPS funding. Do you have a tick list of the projects that you want to do and rough estimates of their costs, so that, if and when we see any money from the state, you'll know which projects you can move on? Or
Yeah, we pretty much have that all set. The big project is finishing Buffalo Road. And that will consume, most of the CHIPS money. So that's the big one that's on the plate for right now. And we're just, at this point, we're going forward with completing everything we need to. And that way, when that funding does come through, the word is that it's gonna come through. It's just a matter of when. But it would be a little more secure if we had that paper in our hand.
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so we're just working, towards the finish. And if the money comes through, great. And at this point, if it doesn't, it'll be ready for next year, and we'll move on to the next project.
Great.
Okay,
That
great.
sounds good.
Thanks, Bob.
Any other questions for Bob? Because we lost him. Great. Okay. Thank you, Bob. Other questions for me? All right. So let's see. Town clerk, Jesse, do you want to report anything? Do you have a report for us?
I guess I just wanted everyone to know and the public to know that I'm in the office about 3 or 4 days a week now and still maintaining hours from home. And if anybody needs to reach me, just to continue to email, I think I've been pretty much covering everyone that has called or emailed. So I just would want to encourage everyone to continue to do that until we get the word that we can open to the public again.
Great. Thanks, Jesse. Dan Klein. Is Dan there?
Yes, hello. Welcome. Good evening, everybody. I do have a number of things to report. I will sort of go from the most pleasant to the least pleasant, I guess. Let's see. The Ag District review, it's been going on for quite a while, it's been delayed. And I just want to remind you the public hearing is Tuesday, May 19th, 5:30. I don't anticipate there'll be any changes, but just so you know, that's the time when it'll be finalized. Got this issue that I had emailed the town board about, and I'm putting something in the Old Mill this month about it. It's a little hard to explain, so I'm just going to give a very abbreviated version. That is, county legislature seats are up for election in 2021, but the census data will not be ready in time for us to use it for redistricting. So we're going to have to go through some amount of time with the legislature districts potentially out of sync with the census data. And I had mentioned this to the town board, and I got some interesting, really good responses, suggestions to stagger the terms of the county legislature. So I did a little more research on that, and that is something that is in our power. And I agree that that would be an improvement. However, it shouldn't be done before redistricting, because then we would just have to, it would just mess things up if you had half the terms starting and different lengths, and then you had to redistrict. So I will take it up again after redistricting. Wanted to let you know that this is not a county issue, but I heard about it from a Caroline resident. So I just want to report it because it is of relevance to most rural landowners. And that is that the Ithaca wastewater treatment plant is going to be undergoing some repairs and upgrades this summer. And they will not be able to take the full amount of trucked septic waste that they normally can. So this is people that have septic systems at their house that have to get them pumped, you know, once a year, once every 3 years, whatever it is for that particular dwelling. And that gets trucked to the wastewater treatment plant in Ithaca. There will be some times this summer when the plant will not be available to take that. So the haulers, who have all been notified about this, are going to need to truck the waste to Syracuse. You can imagine that that's going to give them, cost them a lot more money. So it's possible that it's going to cost us, the residents, a lot more money if we have to get our septic systems pumped this summer. The tentative time for this partial closure of the wastewater treatment plant is June, July, and August of this year. I had also notified the town board about this, and some of you may have seen this in the media, but I just thought I'd mention it at the meeting, that of the 134 cases of positive tests for coronavirus in Tompkins County, 2 of those were Caroline residents. So 2 out of 134. And I don't have any more information about that. They will not release any more detailed information. Just thought it might be somewhat interesting to the residents. I was at the Danby Town Board meeting on Monday night, and I want to let you know that they are discussing furloughing their highway department employees, probably starting at the end of next week and running through the end of July. They didn't totally formalize that yet, but that was the discussion. My guess is that's what they're going to try to do. And then my final topic tonight is the county budget. And the county is looking at a very severe revenue shortfall. It's very difficult to predict exactly how much it is, but our current estimate is between $10 million and $18 million in revenue shortfall in 2020. That's $10 to $18 million below what we budgeted for 2020. So our immediate response to this is that we need to cut expenses as much as we can. And I'm going to run through the items that we are looking at as the first steps. So the county has furloughed approximately 90 employees, also at this time through the end of July. We have approximately 30 vacant positions that we are not going to fill. We are going to scale back our capital projects, and that includes, at least at this time, all of the paving projects that were scheduled for this summer. For Caroline, that was supposed to be Coddington Road and Lounsbury Road. So those are not, at least at this time, are not going to happen this summer. The county is looking at offering early retirements to some of our employees, and we're going to be discussing that over the next few days. So we haven't made a formal, we don't have a formal plan yet or a formal proposal. We don't even know if it's going to happen yet, but that's another thing we would do to cut down on expenses. We are considering making possible adjustments to the health insurance offerings that we offer our employees and or our retirees. That also, there is no definite plan yet. That's just a discussion of another way that we may be able to save some money this year. So even if we did many of those things, or at least the ones that we know for sure that we're doing, we're still looking at many, many millions of dollars shortfall. It could be $7 million. It could be much, much more than that. So just to be clear, this is money for the year 2020 that we don't have, that we thought we were going to have. So something that we cannot do, just again, I just want to be clear, something we cannot do is to raise the taxes, right? We can't raise taxes in 2020. We have to make this money up somewhere else, some way else. When it comes to the 2021 budget, there's even fewer things that are known. Normally, by this time, we have already begun the 2021 or the following year's budget process, but there are so many unknowns that we have delayed even starting that process until August. So when I have more information about that, I will definitely let you know. And that is my report.
I said thank you when I was muted, Dan. Yeah, that's, your county budget report is a little harrowing.
Yes. It's pretty severe, as we all know, but when I started seeing the actual numbers, it's a little difficult to imagine what it is that we're going to do to solve this problem. And I want to take that statement back immediately. I know what we're going to do in 2020 if we have to. Well, first of all, what we're hoping for is a federal stimulus bill. That would help a lot this year, right, for towns and the county. County has a pretty good fund balance, so that's what we're going to do if we have no other way to come up with the money in 2020. 2021 is much harder to predict, though. You can only go into the fund balance for so long. Yeah. So I really have nothing to say about 2021 that has any reality at this point.
Good. Any questions, other questions for Dan? Great.
No, but thank you. Thank you for laying it out, Dan. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Sorry, I wish it were better news.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah.
Dan, I had listened to the meeting where this was discussed, but I believe there were some PowerPoints. I guess there was one that was about COVID and the reentry that is being planned now, and then the other was a PowerPoint related to this budget and
Yes.
how it was being handled. Do you know, is that posted somewhere separate from the meeting that's, more accessible if somebody just wants to look at the budget PowerPoint?
I don't know for sure. I can look into that. Shall I let the town board know what I find out, or is that the best way to?
Yeah, if there's a link to the PowerPoint itself, rather than people having to sit through the whole county ledge meeting to hear the information, if they just wanted to review the PowerPoint, it might be nice if there was that available. So
I will check. I will do my best to get it on our website, and I will let the town board know when that happens.
great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Dan. Great. Thanks very much, Dan. So without further ado, I'd like to move on to the presentation of the New York State Stretch Code by Terry Carroll and
Mark Brook has a question.
Oh, I need to unmute, or I need to co-host. Let's see. Lou needs to be co-hosted. I'll get him.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a brief report from the code office.
Hello, everybody.
Two very brief things. One is acknowledging that there's a backlog because of tremendous distractions related to COVID, both trying to figure out what we're supposed to do and then some very unfortunate enforcement actions that are in process. And the second thing is there's this concept of a May 16th reopening of phase 1, which includes construction, but there's a complete lack of clarity over what is required to open. And I've been in contact with Assembly Member Barbara Lifton. I've been in contact with Empire State Development Headquarters, Empire State Development Regional, getting information through the Builders Association. And I guess the sober reality is at the moment, it's totally unclear. So no one in our government and no one in the community should expect that on May 16th, more than one person could just pick up a hammer and resume work. That is not the case at this time. So the May 16th reopening is a little bit confusing at the moment. It's only days away. So I just wanted to make sure that word got out, because I really do not have any desire to go out on enforcement actions related to COVID. It's not necessary. It has safety concerns, et cetera, et cetera. So I appreciate the opportunity to make sure that as much of the community as possible understands that May 16th is not just a go and reopen. There are going to be some steps in place that are still, unfortunately, completely unknown. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Brooke. That's a good clarification. Great. Okay, let's see. And now, Lou, are you able to share your screen? And
Okay, I'll give that a try.
great. So I want to
Looks-
welcome Lou
looks good.
Vogel and Terry Carroll to talk to us about the Stretch Energy Code.
Good. Thank you all. This is a unique time we're in, so this is something else to consider. Thanks for taking the time, and I realize with everything going on, this may not be your biggest priority, but I think it's something that can help us still move towards our emissions goals. So let me get it into slideshow mode. And a few of you have seen this before. I have pared it down since a couple of you seen it, saw it previously. And feel free to ask questions at any time. And Terry, also feel free to chime in, as I know you will. Terry Carroll with Kernel Cooperative Extension, I spelled that wrong, has been helping us get the word out. And I'm Lou Vogel, president of Tatum Engineering here in Ithaca. And so tonight I'm talking about the New York Stretch Energy Code of 2020, which is an overlay that improves upon the new code that just came out yesterday. The new code gets adopted without any fanfare. And this needs, the stretch code would need to have some documentation and forms filled out. So this is what I'll be going through. And the benefits of the code, it is pretty easily adoptable. We have some adoption language that we could send along to you to help that happen. Everything is based on construction techniques that are happening already in many cases with actually quite a few of our builders here in Tompkins County. We tried, I was on the committee that developed this, and we tried to make things, to do things that didn't require really gyrations to make happen. This code, the stretch code, will approximately match what the New York State Code will be in 3 years. They come out every 3 years. And so the stringency of this one is intended to match what will happen in 3 years. So if you did adopt this code, you would just be a few years ahead of other people in the state. We think there's fairly, in some cases, an easier administration of the energy code. Brooke is I'm happy to have him chime in. Because there's the possibility of having third parties using the energy rating index or passive house, which are alternative compliance paths. That is a way to lessen the burden on the code inspectors. And this slide is just to give you an idea of why we think it's necessary to improve the code. It has been certainly improving, but you can see, I can't really point at things, but it's flattened out a little bit. And so that red arrow is pointing at where the stretch code is now and where the code will be in 3 years. Part of the benefit is healthier buildings. There's more ventilation requirements. There's somewhat of an added resilience to the buildings. They can last longer if the power should go out, or they're really more comfortable with more insulation. Your wall temperatures are warmer in the wintertime. A big point for us is that this is primarily new buildings and gut renovations. And these buildings are going to be around for many, many years, 50 to 100 years, one would hope. And so these operating costs and emissions reductions are going to be continuing on for all those years. And there's, to try to come back a few years after, it just doesn't happen. In my experience, it would never happen, these improvements. There are some opportunities for the local workforce to help out with the enforcement, and the approximate cost savings across the board and averaged over everything is somewhere around 10 or 11%. There's a fair bit of difference between residential and commercial, and our energy costs are quite low compared to the rest of the state. So our payback periods are a little bit longer than the rest of the state. Some of the reasons that a community might want to do that are, as you can see there, and I know that many of you are very involved in this sort of work, and I think.
Hey, Lou, can I ask a
Yeah,
question?
Mark.
I just have a naive question about so the stretch code now will equal New York State's energy code in 3 years, right?
Right, approximately.
And then, so in 3 years, would there be a new stretch code that would equal
Yes.
the New York State energy code 3 years forward?
Yes, we do plan to continue to have an improved code each code cycle so that we can push things to net zero. That's where we're trying to get.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have a projection about how many of those leaps are needed to get where we want to go?
I have not really looked at that. It's a good question. I'll take a look at it. I would say 3 or 4 is my initial guess.
Okay. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
New York City local law has, I believe by now, adopted New York Stretch. The city of Beacon also just adopted it. Ithaca has it as part of their green building code, which I'm very familiar with. It's not adopted by the city, but it is part of, or one of the things can earn points in the new green building code when it comes out. And then there's a number of other communities that are looking at it, and I think we're going to start to see more and more adopting it. So there's two basic divisions, residential and commercial. Start with residential to give you an idea of what the changes are going to be, and I guess first what the savings will be. So this is for our climate zone 6A, and this is an aggregated cost savings, but adjusted for our low energy costs here in our area in Tompkins County. So it's about 12.5% electricity savings. It of course depends on what fuel you're using, or hopefully not using fuel. And then so that 18.9% on the right is an average across the state. I mean, the share of buildings is averaged across the state.
And this is per year, Lou? These are cost savings per year?
Right.
Or over the lifetime of the equipment, or what?
Per year.
Wow, okay, great.
And these are the things that have changed. There's not a ton of big changes, especially in residential, I think. The R values are the same. The windows are better, but still an Energy Star window will suffice. I looked at Lowe's, and I think 85 to 90% of their windows are already Energy Star. There's improvements in lighting requirements, the efficacy of the lights, and a greater percentage of high efficient lighting. There's savings in hot water piping. You have 4 different options for that. The ducts are required to be in the conditioned space, which I and we are very adamant about. It's something that some builders would have to change. But like I said, I think everybody should do that. And there's also a requirement that the ductwork should be sized according to manual D, I think it is. There's a requirement to be ready for solar and electric vehicles to be used at the location. But it's not a costly requirement. It's pretty much just saying you need to have your electrical panel ready to accept that, and you need to provide a conduit either up to the roof in the case of solar or out to the garage in the case of the EV ready. And then also to have some, to maintain some of your some portion of your roof, about 40%, free and ready to accept solar panel. And then there's the main cost addition is the energy recovery ventilators are required, and the testing is the testing also required of the ventilation system. That's for residential. What was that?
Was that kind of an overview of what the operational components are that would be addressed? Because where does that 18% mostly come from? Is it from the ventilator change, or can you say?
Part of it is ventilator, but not that much. Just an overall improvement in like slight improvements are enough to get to that amount.
But that surprises me because you say no change in R values.
Right. Yeah, we looked at that, but it was kind of at the point where it didn't seem worth requiring additional.
Okay. Interesting.
And for commercial buildings, cost savings a little bit less, about 10%. The estimated first cost is about $2 per square foot, and the simple payback is about 12.5 years. And this assumes that you're paying upfront for these changes. If they are included in the mortgage, then it just gets the initial impact is even less than that. And there's also I do want to add that in addition to these costs, that there would be a cost if it's required to have an energy rater do the work, the testing and inspection. So the cost of that is somewhere, I was told it was somewhere around $1,000 to $1,200 per house. So there would be an additional cost there. And the changes on the commercial end, there are some additional R values required for the commercial, roughly about 1 inch of styrofoam on the walls, and attics more than that are, actually I can't read that, R13 I think it is. Oops. Let me go back. And the windows are also slightly better. Air leakage, blower door testing is required for larger buildings, 25,000, well, larger around here, I guess, 25,000 square feet, between that and 50,000 square feet. And then additional lighting savings, additional occupancy sensors required. There's the hot water piping savings, and also the ducts are required to be in the conditioned space and sized properly. And there's also a requirement for the EV and the solar ready, and it's similar to that, a little more specific as far as how many EV spots there are, depending on how many parking spaces are building. And then the 40% roof base on the south side to be kept available. And then there's whole building energy monitoring, so that we know how much of every bit of added energy to the building is costing or being used. All supplied energy. So if it's getting steam from somewhere, then that would also have to be metered. And there's additional efficiency improvements for elevators and commercial kitchen equipment. And there's an additional commissioning requirement to check on the air barrier, the envelope, to make sure that that has been installed properly. And that's for buildings larger than 25,000 square feet. There's a website that has frequently asked questions, and here's a few that are kind of have come up quite a bit. So it's not requiring that solar panels be installed. It's just having it be ready for that to happen. It's not changing the administration of the code at all, just improving on certain elements of it. And there isn't an option to only allow a certain compliance path, which is being worked on. That's not what I'm familiar with. And so the energy code is available now. As I said, the new code just came out yesterday, and they will come out with a code manual that is just for the stretch code, not something that you have to switch back and forth between the two codes. Terry, is there anything else you would like to add? I'm going to assume not.
Apparently, hold on, Lou. Apparently Terry's muted. Let me go find him.
I can see that.
I don't see him.
Can't do it yourself.
John, are you able to fix him? I can't get to. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I don't have all the.
Yes, thanks. So I think the only thing I would add is, while this isn't currently part of, any statewide programs like the Clean Energy Communities program, it is part of the DEC's Climate Smart Communities program. It does give points within that program. Town of Caroline's already a certified climate smart community at the bronze level. Passing this would certainly help get to that next level, the silver level, which helps you apply for climate smart community state grants that can help with adaptation and mitigation efforts. And we do anticipate that in the future this could be part of future NYSERDA offerings, like a second iteration of the Clean Energy Communities program. So there's certainly the benefits that Lou has talked about for residents, for commercial businesses in terms of the energy savings, the monetary savings, but hopefully down the line there would be some benefits to reward the town for taking leadership on this issue as well.
Great, thank you.
And we enacted what, by passing a local law? Is that?
Yeah, Article 3 of the municipal home rule law. I'm not very familiar with that, but it doesn't look too complicated. And I'll go ahead and send you the adoption guide that we have.
Great, that's great. Thanks.
Send it to Mark and he can pass it on.
Yep, terrific.
Great.
I wonder if our code officer has any comments about it. Oh, Brooke is muted.
Is he muted?
I got unmuted. You're on mute, Brooke. Go ahead.
Hi. I had a great conversation with Lou and Terry. And I guess without getting into great detail, in broad brushes, I think I have, basically three concerns. One is I'm quite confident that the energy savings is overestimated. And that's based on my participation for decades in the Energy Star program. So it's not just an off-the-cuff remark. And I do want to remind everyone that I'm very committed to energy efficiency and sustainability. So I'm far from an anti-green person, but I always look at this stuff as saying that the consumer has a limited pot of money, and the best thing that government can do is give them objective information on how to spend it for the most bang for the buck to get towards the 2050 goals. The second comment is a lot more complicated. And I guess it has to do with we're entering this very uncertain economic time. And I think the estimated cost of compliance with this probably is going to be on the average house, $2,000 or more. And one of the somewhat fatal flaws in all of these energy programs that I've observed is that there isn't really a differentiation between someone building, a very small home and someone building a very large home. And the cost of most of the extra compliance measures like an energy rater or a heat recovery ventilator, they don't really scale up quickly. So you have someone that wants to desperately build, like in our town, we have some people doing a lot of the work themselves. So they're trying to build a house for, $170,000. Well, the percentage impact on them is a lot greater than someone building the house for $400,000. And I honestly don't have an answer to I don't have a solution, but it's something I've observed for more than 20 years. And I've had discussions with NYSERDA and their programs. And then, so I guess as we go into these uncertain financial times, is this the best time to put another financial burden on someone when, they're looking at very long-term paybacks? And then the last comment, in no way, shape, or form really directly is against the stretch code. And I think that, I thought about my conversation with Lou and Terry quite a bit, which, like I said, was a great conversation. And I guess the biggest thing that makes me uncomfortable as a code enforcement officer is currently most folks and many municipalities are not even complying with the current code. And I think that everyone, all three of us would probably agree that one, compliance with our current codes, even though they've changed, is really a significant benefit to the environment and the energy bills of the consumer and their health. And two, we're really not accomplishing anything if we move to a stretch code and it's still not complied with. So while it's not directly speaking against the stretch code, I think it's important for everyone to be aware that, largely speaking, we don't really have full compliance with the energy code even right now. And I'm working very hard on that. But it's definitely a challenge. It's definitely a challenge. So that's kind of the short version. But it's a well thought through document. My primary concerns are the cost, and I'm quite confident it overestimates savings for most cases.
We didn't do the cost savings, so all I have is a document that I've looked at.
Right.
And it seems reasonable to me, but when you get down to cutting boards and adding insulation, costs do go up more than you think they're going to go up, in my experience. So I would not argue that they're going to be what those percentages are. I would say that the costs do scale up with size. Like an ERV, you can get a very small ERV for less cost than a 500 CFM ERV or something. You probably wouldn't need that large, but so I think there is some scaling up with size, not necessarily the cost of a residence. And yeah, it's a tough time. I mean, Dan's report kind of brings it home. This is real, very real for all of us, if not, yeah.
I think, I certainly wouldn't quibble with, the points that Brooke made. He certainly has a lot of experience in this. That last point, the enforcement of the energy code, as the code enforcement officer, you're able to make sure that it's being enforced, at least in Caroline. And, for the purpose of this, that's really what we're talking about, the town of Caroline doing this.
Right.
The cost, Yeah, I definitely have reservations myself, you know, especially in this, you know, COVID world and in the post-COVID world when, you know, the margins are going to be tight for a lot of people. Is it really worth, you know, forcing them to spend an extra $2,000 on homes? I try to temper that also with the knowledge that, you know, the homes that people are going to be making now, you know, we're talking about new construction and we're talking about, you know, major renovations. I mean, these are structures that are going to be in place for the next 50, 60, 70 years. You know, I live in a house that was made in 1850. You know, so, you know, these are homes that are going to be around for a long time, and we want them to be built right from the outset. You know, I can tell you that it's not fun having to try and make improvements to an 1850s house. You know, so the what we can do to encourage people to do it right the first time, to not have to go back and try and redo some of these things, I think it will bear out, you know, over the course of the lifetime of the home. But that initial, you know, capital outlay is certainly, you know, a concern and something that needs to be weighed.
But again, getting folded into a mortgage makes it less of a initial impact.
Well, I think two quick points. I think we all have to be very careful about what Lou just said, because when we get to the lower end of the economic spectrum, there's a lot of evidence that shows across the country, many millions of people are frozen out by every $1,000 incremental cost increase. So it's very difficult. My general experience in this energy arena, in these conversations over the years, has been there's this assumption that you're talking about upper middle class or better houses, you know, because we all have some framework to do whatever we need to do. You know, you can't think about everything all at once. And there's definitely a discrimination against the lower cost and smaller homes. Like, for example, I haven't looked at the stretch code significantly, but under the current code, if someone builds a tiny house that's 600 square feet, it's inherently energy efficient by anyone's definition in terms of what it consumes, but it doesn't get any credit or adjustments under the energy code.
It would if the ERI compliance path is taken.
So that would be a good thing about this code. You know, but under the current code, there's really nothing, because I've looked at it and I just scratch my head. You know, you're building this tiny house, you know, who cares if it's 50% more energy efficient? You're using nothing. And then to Terry's point, I largely agree with Terry's comments, but at this moment in time, I guess, and I'm not trying to make this a debate, it's really just some thought ideas. I hope it's not misconstrued. I love what Terry said, because he used the word encourage. And for more than a decade, when I've gone to different meetings of different kinds, talking about green energy and sustainability and things like that, I keep bringing up a concept analogous to encouraging, which to me is, you know, we need to give people good information with confidence. So it's not the HVAC person or the installation person selling them a bunch of hooey, even with the best of intentions. But right now, the consumers don't really have good information. So one maybe in between option that the town could consider, you know, which I don't know what Terry and Lou think about this, but maybe we offer an internal incentive, like a reduced permit cost, for people who choose to go for the stretch code. I mean, I'm not trying to fight the stretch code. I'm just trying to look at it from a practical lens. And maybe, you know, even if it's a 1-year period, maybe the town decides, while we sort of sort out what's going on with COVID, you know, we can try to, and I would pledge, I would do my utmost. I hope Terry and Lou, you know, have confidence in me. I would do my utmost to promote it the best that I can. I mean, I've tried to insert myself in building permit processes with homeowners, encourage them to look at air source and ground source heat pumps. So I'm not shy to try to engage people. But maybe that's something else that the board might want to consider, you know, some kind of incentive, which isn't going to cover all the costs, but would, you know, alert people, and we could explain to them, you're going to save money and, you know, blah, blah, blah. I'm not 100% sure, but there used to be certain, I thought there were property tax reductions for certain types of energy improvements years ago. And maybe that's something that, you know, the three of us could team up and we could look into. But what Terry said, when he used the word encourage, I think encourage is a beautiful word in America, and I'm far from a libertarian. But I think that might be a different lens to look at this through, you know, giving people the encouragement and the option, at least, you know, through 2021. You know, and then things could maybe reset and you could look at it again. But and again, in public, I really appreciate the time and the good conversation I had with Lou and Terry. I thought it was a really good conversation that we had previously.
Yeah, thanks, Brooke. Yeah, any way we can get people to build better houses, I'm for it. So yeah, if that's a path that we could go forward, then I would say yes. And maybe also the energy rater path could be incentivized. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the compelling point that you made, Lou, I mean, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but after what, 12 years, was like a 12-year payback time.
Yeah, something like, I'd say 12 to 13 years.
If we can encourage people on this route, it's actually easing their burden.
Right.
The burden at that time. So.
Yeah. You know, I'm interested in, Brooke, in your comment about every $1,000 increase. I
could look that up and share some information, because it's been a constant discussion, you know, at the National Association of Home Builders. You know, their goal is to build homes, and generally to build good homes that are energy efficient, et cetera. And in many parts of the country, there are unbelievable permit fees and infrastructure fees and things like that. It's not so much about the code per se, but they've done all kinds of studies that show, you know, for every incremental cost increase, what the impact is. And it's something that, in my experience with NYSERDA, they never really considered. And it's just unfortunate because, you know, honestly, I'd rather see people building 1,000 square foot homes and 800 square foot homes and 1,200 square foot homes, you know, and that also enables them to even build them better, you know, if they save money. So, and that's the hard part for those who aren't familiar with the code process. It really doesn't do much to sort of recognize these different stages. You know, and at the end of the day, if you're building a $350,000 house, everything that Terry and Lou are calling is absolutely insignificant by any practical, reasonable standard. You know, so I hope, you know, that's not misunderstood. But in the town of Caroline, we've got people spending a lot less money.
Would the town of Caroline have a minimum amount that's below that? It's not required to do the stretch code?
I imagine, since the stretch code is a more restrictive local standard, it's something that if we could figure out what that is, I don't know why this, I'm not aware of any reason that the stretch code is mandatory, take it or leave it. I think we could modify it, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I believe so. I'm not
so that might be another, so that might be another conversation to have. I think that the uniform solar permit, you really had to adopt it almost wholesale. It's a different beast. But this may be different. So it's not saying we're going to solve tonight, but that might be another thing to talk about. You know, what's the threshold?
Yeah.
That's something we can work on, and so I think we should move on. And
we'd be happy to look at that with you.
Sure.
Thank you all, fine folks.
Yeah.
Amazing the amount of time you all put into this work is very impressive. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou.
For
Terry.
zooming out with us. So.
And thank you, Lou and Terry, again for engaging with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brooke. Yeah, we definitely enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you for caring about what people put in.
Yeah.
We need more of that.
I'm trying.
Great.
Bye now.
Thanks again, guys. That was very, very interesting. Thanks. All right. Quickly moving on the agenda. I'd like to take care of the business and then move on to the discussion of the moratorium. So I'll first offer a motion to a transfer resolution of 3,200 from A 1990.4 contingency to A 1440.405 engineering creeks for engineering to cover engineering costs for the TG Miller's done for the Ecruce Road project. So in today's bills. Do I have a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Thanks, Irene. Any questions? Discussion? Call a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank
Aye.
you. Opposed? Great, unanimous. And with that, I will offer a motion to pay the A fund bills in the amount of $23,880.43. And second on that.
Sure, second.
Irene's got the second again there, and
It's because everybody else is muted, so.
okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call a vote. I think the vouchers were in good order. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? And no nays with everyone muted. That's great. I'll offer a motion to pay the highway fund bills in the amount of $18,542.68.
Second.
Seconded by Tim. And any discussion?
Pay the bills.
Pay the bills. All in favor of paying the highway bills?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Thank
Aye.
you. And then the final bill paying motion is for streetlights in the amount of $547.34.
Second.
Seconded by Cal. And discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great. Thank you. Moving on to the minutes of last week's meeting of Cinco de Mayo. Have people had a chance to review those? Provide any feedback to Jesse? Are we ready to approve those? I was able to look them over and found them excellent. And
Yep.
Typically excellent.
yeah.
And amazingly timely. Jesse, it means so much. Thank you for that. It really helps to review things when they're still fresh in our minds.
Yeah, and it's so niceful to have that tool at our disposal. So
yeah,
by the way, so okay. Then with that, I'll approve the minutes of May 5th. Thank you, Jesse. So I would like to now open discussion of the moratorium. I'll just of the moratorium law. I did want to point out that we did receive this is the type 2 action, so it doesn't require environmental review. It's not perceived to pose a significant environmental risk, but it does require 239 review by the county, and so the county has reviewed the moratorium and has determined that it has no negative intercommunity or countywide impacts. So we received that on April 22nd. And so with that, I will open discussion of the moratorium.
I have a question for Brooke, if he knows that of how many properties moratorium on commercial development would affect.
Oh, we need to unmute Brooke. Okay, Brooke, now you can talk.
So to the best of my knowledge, it would definitely affect one property, the property that triggered the moratorium. Bless
So
you.
but
I guess what I'm not clear about is I haven't read the moratorium in detail. I apologize. I didn't think it was relevant to me, but I guess I'll have to dig into it. I think the biggest concern I would have about the moratorium is if it,
Excuse me, I think that it would be just helpful to stay on topic, and so
Yes.
I would prefer.
no, it's
discussion of the
to answer.
moratorium to be amongst the
It's
board.
it's to answer his question. It's not a broadening of the scope.
And so, Brooke, let me just help you focus since you're not conversant on the moratorium. It's on projects that would require site plan review. So I guess the answer is how many
So
projects require site plan review?
So there's some confusion about how I read the site plan review requirements and the review board or site plan review board does. So so the point that I was going to make to the second point to answer Cal's question is, if additions and minor modifications to existing commercial buildings are not part of the moratorium, that would be the bigger concern about how many projects would be affected. I just reviewed a permit today, application for someone that wants to add on a covered roof to an existing commercial building. And if the moratorium stopped that, you know, I guess that would be a concern, for example. That's the best I've got, Cal. We don't have a lot of new construction going on for commercial that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I'll just say that I continue to be impressed by the very, very strident public support of the moratorium, acknowledging that we did receive petitions from a much smaller group of citizens who have reservations. I've expressed my support of the moratorium previously. I think there are a couple of tweakings that we might consider, but in general, I'm very, very much in support of the moratorium. And especially because last night we had a very productive meeting of the planning board, and the comprehensive plan is really, the draft of the comprehensive plan is very, very far along. And it would, I think, behoove us to be informed and guided by that plan as it comes to fruition in the very near future. That was Tim, for those of you who can't see.
Well, I too am very appreciative of the passion and love for this town, and also certainly for the desire to respect the work of the planning board that's gone on for many years and is coming to an end, and you know, has the potential to guide development going forward. At the same time, I'm concerned about various things that I've been hearing in the comments that really are not at all the domain of what this moratorium pertains to, or frankly, what the town has the authority to do. We're not really in a position to decide thumbs up or thumbs down to a given business. We can't say we like this kind of business and we don't like that kind of business. We're just, you know, there's constitutional rights to, you know, Commerce Clause that allows people to put forward businesses. And if you don't like their business, don't shop there. My hope is that the company takes notice of the fact that there are some 700 people, many of whom, I don't know exactly, but many of whom are within driving distance to the store. And you know, the fact that there are people who, you know, a large number of people who, my guess is, would not be shopping there. On the other hand, we've heard from, and I didn't count the numbers, Mark, it seemed like you said something about 70, somewhere around 70.
Oh, I did a quick count. I think the total is about 89.
Okay. All right. So roughly 90 people then, who have expressed interest in, again, we don't have authority, but who have expressed interest in having that store be present and that they would shop in it. Moreover, they've expressed concerns, and I'll be honest, I share them, in regards to potential for lawsuit and the potential cost to the town. And again, we've heard from Dan as to the financial impacts that the county is facing. The town itself is somewhat insulated from that, in that we don't have a lot of outside revenue sources, and so we're not losing our outside revenue sources. But certainly we have people here from all walks of life who work downtown or at Cornell or at Ithaca College, who are or for the city, or various places that are facing furloughs and economic hardships, and are going to continue to face those hardships for a while. And so I'm having I'll be honest, I'm not yet decided. I am really struggling with this, and what's the concern about a lawsuit concerns me, in terms of the expenses that we may incur in the face of our residents being, having their own economic hardships, and potentially all of us having to shell out quite a bit more money in county taxes next year, even if we're not having to do it here in this town. So I'm as much as I appreciate, and you guys got to know, this is super hard for me. I came in holding the torch for banning fracking and wanting to see this town have its independence. And respect for the vision that we had for this town. So I'm super torn over this. This is really hard for me. I'm not sleeping well over it because I just go back and forth. So I don't have a decision at this point. That's where I am. I do think there's probably some refinement to the language in the moratorium local law that would behoove us to make, although I recognize that prolongs the process. But I think that if we're going to be voting on a law, that we need to clean up some of the language and processes in there a bit further. So at the risk of delaying the inevitable decision, I think that I'd like to see us review the language in the moratorium and perhaps make some changes. So that's where I'm at. It's tough. It's hard understanding both sides, you guys. Really is. Yep.
Can I just add, I think it's important that we keep the focus as well on the aim and the context of the moratorium, which is to be guided by the direction of the comprehensive plan that is soon to come to fruition. And regardless of all of the public interest in a particular establishment, which I think is probably very, very much work to help to inform the town about the scope of the comprehensive plan. What we're aiming to achieve is to let ourselves be in a position of being guided by that revision that's been ongoing for so many years.
Mm-hmm. Great. So thank you, Tim. Thank you, Irene, for your comments. And I want to emphasize a point that you made, Irene, and Tim alluded to it too, that that people have spoken about whether they do or they don't like this particular kind of store. And that's not really what what we have authority over or what we're considering here. And so, you know, as Tim said, the really the operational circumstance for this moratorium is that the comprehensive plan has been under development in a very vigorous and rigorous way for a long time, and it is near completion. And so, you know, I poured through the land use document that we have posted on the website from New York State. And so one of the quotes in there is that land use moratoria are appropriate mechanism for addressing long-range community planning and zoning objectives. I think that's, so, you know, exactly what we're looking to do, the justification for this moratorium. Moratoria cannot be imposed for extended periods of time, like 5 years or something like that. So and from that same document, moratoria of up to a year have been deemed reasonable. Beyond that, it may depend on the particular subject matter addressed by the moratorium. So our planning board has provided a realistic timeline for completion of the comprehensive plan within 6 months. So I think that's really important. In another case, the community must be actively engaged in the development of either a comprehensive plan or land use regulations. That's exactly the case for Caroline. The enactment of a moratorium must be justified by a valid public purpose. And I believe there is a valid public purpose here in making sure that we guide development in Caroline in a way that's in line with the vision as expressed in the comprehensive plan. A moratorium on land uses or development will be considered a valid interim measure if it is reasonably designed to temporarily halt development while the municipality considers zoning changes and the enactment of measures to specifically address matters of community concern, from the same document. Moratoria are not therefore categorically takings. Indeed, many parcels will emerge from a moratorium with enhanced value owing to the better land use regulations than in place. And so I think just reviewing our circumstance in relation to the underpinnings and the justifications for a moratorium, I feel very much in favor of enacting a moratorium for a period of 180 days to allow our planning board to complete the comprehensive plan. So. And that's the end of my statement.
Well, I too have very much enjoyed the eloquent, thoughtful, and heartfelt dialogue that's gone on over this issue. For me, the town of Caroline, we do have this authority to put this moratorium in place. But this moratorium, this pause, I think the town is going to be taking on a confrontation over land use and property rights. If it's litigated, the town of Caroline has the risk of losing a significantly expensive confrontation in court if the developer or the landowner chooses to pursue their rights. I feel the town comprehensive plan needs to be updated and finalized. And it's my hope that the procedure would proceed expeditiously. I would like to see guidelines that were a little more objective. It seems to me that some of them are kind of subjective, like what is rural character? I think rural character may be kind of like pornography. It's kind of hard to define, but you know it when you see it.
I think you're a rural character, Tal.
You know, and a lot of the statements I've heard, you know, well, it's going to adversely affect our property values. So I called up assessment and I said, so what's a small scale retail outlet going to do for property values in an area? They said, well, it's one of those conundrums. You don't know until it happens. Some people are going to find it a convenience. Other people are going to find it an annoyance. You know, we've heard lots of discussion on the effects to the rural economy, and yet for years and years I've been reading about ways to save the rural economy, and I don't know, much has come up. I know running a small dairy farm's not easy. You know, some people feel it's going to punish our economy. I don't know. The other day, I was looking for a little cheap gag gift for Mother's Day, and I went to Walmart. And, you know, I'm standing in line waiting, and there's a woman with 2 kids in front of me, and she's got her, you know, she's checking the price of everything. And, you know, for some people, you know, these places, they do sell things for less. They've got small margins. They you know, there's not a lot of help in the stores. There may be only one clerk, and, you know, they may be concerned about security and things, but that's their business model. And it seems that it's worked for them. Monday, I drove up to the other side of Cazenovia with Aaron, and, you know, going through quite a few rural communities along. We went up Route 13 and back 20 and down 81, but, you know, you see a lot of these discount mini Walmarts around, and, you know, they seem to fit into the communities. I can't see that they're any harm or any great asset one way or the other. So I don't know, that's kind of my take on it. I'd like to feel there's, you know, we're a big enough town for both the Brookton Market and the mini Walmarts.
So again, Cal, just the moratorium doesn't address what the brand of store is. It's about
no, but it's, well, I'm just saying, it's small. It seems to be, I mean, look at the original petition with the 700 signatures on it and read the first 2 sentences.
Yeah, I know.
And then tell me that it's not about that. I don't think you can do that.
Well, I guess I'll tell you what I think it's about is having a commercial retail establishment in a neighborhood and a pastoral area, not a commercial area. So I think that's the key to me about of what we're considering here. Whether we want to, you know, have something like the Cortland strip along the highway.
But what if some farmer wanted to put in, become a contract grower for Cargill and put in 5 50 by 500 foot grower houses with a 5-acre manure lagoon out back, and we couldn't touch it because it's right to farm?
Well, I guess that's a separate issue. But I mean, I was
I guess for me, it's part of, you know, that even, I don't know how it could be addressed, but even within the comprehensive plan, you don't want, there's all sorts of things out there that, you know, I'm sure we'd like to not see, or we'd find that they're a scar on the land and an eyesore.
I agree.
to quote Wendell Berry. I don't want to take credit for that. And scars take a long time to heal. So, I really enjoyed the community dialogue immensely. It's like as everyone else has said, it's a community to be proud of.
Yeah,
I agree.
And I want to do the right thing by it. And I don't always know what it is, but I think I think we may be picking a fight here we're going to lose. I mean, that's what it distills down to for me, aside from language of, how, it seems to me kind of some of the stuff seems like double speak. It's, yes, we should renew our efforts to get this comprehensive plan and planning stuff. I mean, what it comes down to is the town needs zoning. We need to say, here's an area for commercial. Here's areas for residential. Here's area, that people are going to want to buy their stuff. During this whole pandemic with the stock markets up and downs and whatever that barometer is worth, sometimes I feel the stock market is nothing more than rich man's dartboard or poker game. But the dollar stores, again, we shouldn't say this, but we did. But they've done incredibly well because they've just got some sort of distribution system. They've got all the little junk. You need some, or not junk, cleaning supplies. One thing or another. They have been, their business model, they have been successful for a reason.
I just reiterate Irene's point that it's not about what. It's about how.
I know it's not about what, but it is.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
I wouldn't mind weighing in.
Okay, thank you, John.
Sure. So I share Irene's, a lot of Irene and Cal's thoughts on this matter. I remember being about 9 years old, and most of you, or some of you know, I grew up on Long Island, which is highly retailed, shall we say. And I grew up in an area where we had a very large shopping mall, and behind my house was a field where they were proposing to put a shopping mall that was going to be directly across the street from the existing shopping mall. And for our community, it raised the question of, what do we want our community to look like? What should be residential? What should be commercial? And I remember being 9 years old, petitioning, much like many of our community members have done. And I appreciate that level of activism. I find myself at 55 in a very torn place because I see us being a community that really talks a lot about our rural character, the sense of community that we have with each other, and how to preserve that. And we do that in a place where we don't have, as Cal said, any zoning, or we've been pretty much for years trying to figure that out. And we find ourselves in a moment where we're close to finishing a revision of what I think is going to be a significant revision to our comprehensive plan, which already lays out a vision from the previous one, and figuring out how do we reconcile all these elements. I don't know the answer to that, right? I know that if we choose this fight, it could be a damn expensive fight, right? And sometimes you should take on the damn expensive fights, right? The question is, can we win it? I don't know. If this fight, I don't know. So where I am at the moment, and I just share this because so many people are on this call, and there are people who aren't on this call who have put a lot of heart and soul into this. Where I am is saying we've gotten some counsel that I can't share here with everyone about the law that we have on the table, or the proposed law that we have on the table, and some suggestions to perhaps work with it and strengthen it. I would be an advocate to look at those quite seriously, to see what are some things we can do to strengthen it, so that if we do decide to move forward with it, we are doing it from the greatest position of strength. Understanding an outcome is never known when a court's involved, right? For the folks who are really passionate about this and petitioning us, I am going to strongly encourage you to hear Mark's words about what this is about and what this is not about. This is about our vision of our town and what we want it to be like and look like. And so I'm going to really, really encourage you to think broader than this particular moment in time, because it matters. And I do, again, appreciate your passion and your commitment, and I hope you feel it back from your board as well. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, John. So I've heard, I think there's agreement that that we should consider modifications based on feedback we've from our council. And so, and I also agree with that. I think the changes are not enormous or whatever, small changes that will make it better. So with that, I guess I would propose that we call an executive session to discuss those changes, if for the same under the same open meetings explanation that I gave last week, which would be to discuss and deliberate upon confidential advice from counsel regarding matters upon which multiple direct and credible threats of proposed imminent litigation have been made, in order to deliberate upon possible changes to the draft moratorium.
So you're making a motion for executive session, is that?
I am making a motion if you're ready to do so. If I can hold that back if you care to discuss further in open session.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I'd second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Great. Okay.
Is there any other town business, or is this the end of the line for what we have to do tonight?
This is all I have on my list. John, do you have a separate item for the meeting to discuss tonight, or?
No.
Okay.
Not just yet.
Okay. So that's it then. That's the end of the agenda. So with that, we will be calling, now we'll be voting on executive session, and with that, then the board will enter a private session. John will usher anybody who wants to stay on into the waiting room, and then we will.
Into the waiting room, Mark?
Or can you do that? Or not?
No, we don't need a waiting room.
No.
We don't need a waiting room.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
we just need to ask everybody else to leave, and
Okay.
when everybody else is gone, it'll be us.
Okay. So yeah. So then.
And Mark, will there be a procedure to inform the public about where things are and what the next stages are?
Yeah, so I do want to explain, thank you for bringing that up. So I should explain that. I anticipate that we will make changes to the draft moratorium law tonight. And with that, that will require a new public hearing. And so given that, I do not anticipate that we will be voting on the current draft tonight. I think we all know enough to know that we will be making these changes. And so we will be setting a new public hearing date, which will require a minimum of a 5-day notice period from the time that it's advertised in the town's newspaper. So, and we will be sending out a town announcement and posting to the website notice of when that will be to the public, so that you will know. Does that make sense? If I forgot the meeting?
Yep.
Okay, great. So thanks everybody for attending tonight's meeting and joining us and offering us your thoughts. So with that, I will move into executive session. Oh, I need to call a vote. So Irene seconded it.
Aye.
So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
You're opposed to an exec session, so, Cal?
No. I'm
Aye.
for it.
You're for it. Okay.
Oh.
That's, if Jesse's still here, so that's unanimous. Thank you for the clarification.
Hang on 1 second. Bobby just asked me a question I want to respond to.
Okay.
Okay. We can ask some people to leave, right?
Yeah.
Oh, John, are you still dealing with Bobby?
John's now muted. We'll unmute him. Oh, he's muted himself. Yeah, I guess.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm just answering a question for Bobby.
Okay. Did you clarify things?
Mark, before I go, I just want to remind you to send me what time you guys get out of executive session.
Okay. And right now we're still recording. So let's demarcate when we're in session and I'll turn the recording off.
Okay.
Asked Bobby to just hit you up with his question, Mark. Is any board member the 607-657-2789 number?
No.
No.
Nope.
Should I stop recording?
Yeah, you could stop now because we've